Hello,
We're live.
everybody.
Oh,
We're here.
hello.
Nice to see everybody.
Oh, what
in
a
the
time
comments.
to be alive. Nice to see
Yeah,
everybody.
I guess every time I'm out, they pull me back in. It's like I don't know if you remember, but I used to be a comedy writer, and the thing about this situation, but the thing about this situation is it's a perfect example of why I think it's impossible to write comedy at the moment. You know, there's a hilarious story about the Greens we should talk about. There was a misgendering incident with the Greens in Canada.
The Canada
It's
Greens.
so funny. The image
my
is the
God.
funniest thing ever. It's like a guy going like this, you know, because he's just been misgendered, or a woman, I don't know.
Because
But
he's
anyway.
misgendered it, or he's done the misgender.
No, someone else did the misgendering, and he was like, because
I
he's
think
a
it was
they.
a she. I don't even know. It
Was
doesn't
it?
even
Yeah,
matter.
it looked like a she. It looked like a she, but
Was
I
it
think
about to
she was.
gasp?
But I think she was a they. So that was
Yeah.
what happened. Some poor guy on the other end of the line momentarily forgot to say "they."
Yeah,
You know,
they're setting up a Zoom call, and you got your little names in the corner, like right there. Somebody put she elle, which is French for her, in the brackets for her pronouns when they were setting up the Zoom call, and she's like, "No, I'm a they them. How dare you?"
Oh, is that what it was? Oh my god!
Yeah.
But anyway,
And then she said it was like, how can I take care of the safety of my fellow Canadians if I can't ensure my own safety? And then she's like, I'm launching a campaign fundraiser on this. Everybody give me money to protect my safety. It was such a grift. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
the actual president of the party, who is an actual Indigenous woman, who is like the first Indigenous woman to lead a Canadian political party on the federal level, is like, fuck this shit. I quit. I'm sick of everybody in the Green Party claiming that they're being harmed all the time.
Oh,
it's like,
really? Wow.
Yeah,
that's
she
great.
quit in disgust, saying that everybody was being manipulative, and she's sick of everybody claiming they're harmed.
Is Canada suddenly beginning the problems that it's caused itself? It seems to me that it might be.
Yeah, but Canada's taking the hard road. They're not taking the smart people stopping the bus before it goes off the cliff road. They're like crashing into the ground off the cliff and then realizing there was a cliff. You know, they're like, let's go over this cliff and then see how painful it is. It's that's the Canada way.
Yes. They're like the bus is on fire, and they're kind of going like this.
But the bus has been on fire for a really long time now.
Look what someone just wrote.
I mean, it really has. Oh, I'm not.
Yes, there's so many phrases like that in this fight, and I kind of jokingly, semi-jokingly, suggested to James Dreyfus that we reenact the tribunal, John Nicholson's performance with James as John Nicholson. I think it could be extremely funny.
God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, do you wear those crazy powdered wigs in tribunals or just in real courts?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to.
You know what I mean? The British wigs you see,
Bevan
like when you watch shows like Silk.
I don't know, but I know that when I saw a courtroom thing before, I think everyone was just dressed normally when it was on Zoom.
Oh,
I don't know. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. And you know what else? There's a few other things we can do. As I was saying to you guys this week in a production meeting that's what we call our WhatsApp group.
That's literally true.
Yeah. Oh no, it's that. Oh yeah. These people like LGBT Alliance, excuse me, not the LGBT Alliance, Mermaid, Stonewall, every trans rights activist who ever lived, the Greens party person who had a heart attack when they were misgendered,
and then tried to cash in on it.
But all of these people seem to ask themselves, what is the biggest stage on which I can be humiliated? That's what they all have in common. Stonewall, Garden Court Chambers, Mermaids, Good Law Project, John Nicholson. What's the biggest audience in front of which I can show my arse? You know?
It's like
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I honestly, I'm not even sure that they feel humiliated. I mean, there's something very odd about this. I think the Good Law Project, I think it's outrageous and quite obnoxious to have brought this case. it's a complete waste of time. I mean, I know there's been crowdfunding on both sides, but I'm assuming the court itself is paid for by the taxpayer. And so this is a huge waste of people's money.
Absolutely.
And it's such a terrible case to bring. They look awful. And, I think this is the first case of its type to have been brought, like a charity bringing another charity to court. But honestly, if they lose because, this is something that you can do, everything that they've complained about, Mermaids has done in spades. So after this,
could very easily be brought against Mermaids.
Absolutely, and I just don't understand how they can't see it. They look terrible. They just look awful. Their witnesses were terrible, underprepared.
Yeah.
And it was like having like seeing a Twitter argument played out in court. Oh, I'm not an expert. I don't know. Genitals.
Exactly,
they just think about genitals. They literally said they think about genitals from morning till evening. I'm like, they literally fucking said this in court. It's just terrible.
All the woman said, she mentioned biological sex. She said sex-based rights could be eroded. And the man was like, why are you obsessed with genitals? I can't stand this. So I put a piece at my Substack, like, this guy has an actual phobia of the mention of biological sex. I'm starting to think that these people are literally just phobic of the acknowledgement of sex dimorphism. They're literally afraid.
I think phobic is a very good word in this case, because there's a certain I wouldn't accuse John Nicholson of homophobia.
No, he's sex phobic. He's phobic of biological sex.
Yeah, but he's very determined to attack this charity made up for lesbians, gays, and bisexuals. He's very angry about it. And can I remind everyone that John Nicholson was still hiding in the closet when all of the LGBT Alliance were fighting on the streets, fighting against Section 28 and everything else that has been coming down the pipe. And people like John Nicholson should be ashamed of themselves for not looking into this issue properly. None of them read the Cass report. One person said, I skimmed it.
Yes. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who said he can't go to bars anymore. Years ago, he said this because all these men keep trying to challenge him, because he was considered the strongest man in the world. He couldn't go out in public.
But he was Mr. Universe.
Yeah. And he was like, I just can't go out because all these men keep coming up to me and challenging me to a fight. And I picture, Stonewall and Mermaids and this LGBT consortium as a bunch of nerdy guys goading each other into going up to Arnold Schwarzenegger and challenging him to a fight. Yes. And then getting roundly humiliated and then going back to their group and acting like they did something really cool. They humiliated themselves, That's what they're doing. They're going up to LGBT Alliance and being like, yeah, you think sex is real? And they're like, yeah, we do. And then they scurry back to their little nerd corner being like, we gave it to them. Like,
and
no,
it's always projection. I remember when Jen Ives came over to me at the LGBT Alliance Festival. He didn't know that I knew that he was a TRA who's there just to derail it, So he came up and he shook hands with me, and his hand was all kind of limp and clammy,
Wait, that was Jen Ives who pulled that stunt?
Yeah.
The same Jen Ives of the Edinburgh Festival or whatever?
Yeah. Same one.
Oh
same
my
one.
God, worlds are colliding right now. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
But anyway, but then I saw a tweet by Ives later on that said, I shook Glinner's hand, it was clammy. And it was like, I wasn't the one sweating in fear because I'd arrived to make a scene, Fucking hell.
Protection!
Exactly, it's all protection. It's all, and some of the things that, the brilliant thing about it is that they've all of it. Paul Roberts, is that his name? He said, let me remember this quote because
the first chap. Yeah.
The first chap. It's a humdinger. He said, does anyone remember it offhand, or will I think I will find it very quickly.
The whole thing was, I'm not an expert.
This is what Akua Reindorf said to him. No kidding. He was an expert. He was an expert at this one moment, right? Because he actually answered something. This answer is why he answered, I'm not an expert, every other question. Reindorf said to him, the view that someone with a female body attracted to men is a heterosexual woman. That is inconsistent with the values of your organizations. And Paul Roberts said, yes, that is inconsistent with our values. So homosexuality, according to Paul Roberts, is inconsistent with the values of LGBT. And you know what? That's what we've been saying all along.
You know,
And
I have a
that's why
question.
LGBT people need a place of their own.
You're goddamn right we do. Like, they're literally saying they don't know anything about gay rights. This man was given an OBE for his service to gay rights. Can you take an OBE back? Is that a thing that's allowed?
Yeah, maybe Ruth Hunt.
Yeah, they took Jimmy Savile's. Oh no, not Jimmy Savile. They took something away.
Ruth Hunt.
Maybe a
Ruth Hunt is a baroness. Ruth Hunt shouldn't be in the House of Lords.
No, these people who were given these for their services to gay rights, now that everybody's sobering up and realizing that these people have been attacking and undermining gay rights, you know, if you got the medal for doing something good and then everybody realizes you actually did something the opposite of that, can't they take your medal away? You know,
I hope so. I guess it's one of those things that's so serious. Maybe if the people apologize, maybe if Ruth Hunt was to apologize for what she's done to lesbians, for what she's putting Kate and Bev through, you know,
no one's going to apologize. I mean, they're not going to apologize. They're just going to soldier on and until there's an ending, and then everyone's going to pretend that we were pretty much all on the same page in the first place, and there was only a few differences. But this case is
you're so right.
It does. I mean, it worries me a little bit, in that I don't even really know what they're trying to find out. There seems to be a lot of questioning about things that people have said, but surely it's either, are they a charity or not? Have they broken any rules or not? Well, there seems to be a huge amount of, and then you said this and you said this, and I know you said it, yeah, but I know you mean something else. How can you have a case that rests on, yeah, I know they're not really saying it, but they mean something else. I know actually that they mean it. And both the first chap and John Nicholson has said that. You know, they've used the terms dog whistling. How is this? How is it not just thrown out at this point?
Well, you see, that fools Twitter people who are too busy to look into this issue. It will not fool some judges who know that whatever decision they take in this is going to be incredibly consequential, because this is the first time a charity has taken against another charity. However, I do think that this is possibly an opportunity to really kill off mermaids, because mermaids is evil and it is harming children, and we know it's harming children. Susie Green's TED Talk, I will say it for the 1,000th time, talks about how when her child was very, very young, still a toddler, that he displayed gender non-conforming traits, and so may well have been gay, but that's not what she thought. Susie Green put him on a course of hormones, and then at the age of 16, took him to Thailand to get him castrated. That is not the decision of the child. That is the decision of the parent. And that is why LGB Alliance are fighting this with every ounce of their strength. Because I think at the end of this, there is going to be, at the very least, a public shaming that will make Kids Company look like child's play, you know?
Absolutely. It's so shocking when you realize that they're literally taking just gender nonconformity, just being different than a stereotypical male or a stereotypical female, and labeling that as trans and medicalizing it. I think, you know, even me, I mean, I'm literally fighting this cause day in, day out. It's my full-time job. Even me, to fully grasp that that's explicitly what they're doing with no asterisks or caveats there. They're literally just saying gender nonconformity means we need to take you to a doctor and alter your genitals. It floors me, and it's taken me years to really just come to grasp that is literally what this ideology is explicitly saying.
Yes.
You're masculine for a woman, you're feminine for a boy, doctor for you. That is what this movement is. It's not celebrating diversity, it's medicalizing it. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on a sec. I'm just about to. Oh no, sorry, Sarah won't be able to make it back. But Dennis, are you watching this? Would you like to pop on and give us some legal stuff at some point?
Pop on in, Dennis.
Let us know in the comments there, Dennis, if you're up for it, and I'll send you a WhatsApp message. Yeah, but this is happening. Like, this just keeps happening. These are very stupid people with lots of money. And what's really unfortunate is that, again, as people said, people have said many times, fighting
If you
this.
want Dennis in, do we need to send him a link?
Don't worry, I'll send him a link in a sec. But I want to,
Okay.
I want to have some of you guys first. I want to get my value out of you two. You know, someone said that these causes that we constantly have to pay for, that we, you know, we've all been sending money to LGBT Alliance, we've been sending money everywhere. You know, it amounts to a second tax on women and their allies who are fighting this nonsense.
It really does.
Yeah, and here's the thing: all of these people get humiliated. So why are you paying? Why are you putting women through this? Why are you making this happen? It's only going to end badly for you. This, I won't say his name. Please don't say his name, anyone. And please don't say his name in the chat either, because that'll give him an excuse. But the Scottish actor is definitely suing me again. That's definitely happening. So I'm going to have to raise money for my defense. He might do what he did with other cases and try and shut down the fundraising, but I think people are on to him for the most part. But the thing is, the Scottish actor, I made him a very kind offer through Kerry Black's lawyers, who he's also going after. I think it's the best offer he'll ever have. I told him that if he apologized to David Bridle, Kerry Black, and LGBT Alliance, I would delete every mention of him from my website and from YouTube, you know, that I could find. I would do that. That is the best offer this man is ever going to get. He is looking to be humiliated in court when the evidence of his campaign against David Bridle's Boys magazine, his campaign against Kerry Black, and his campaign against everyone who has a different opinion to him will be exposed for everyone to see. So again, I'll put that offer out there again. I will delete everything about you, everything that I can find, if you apologize to David Bridle, LGBT Alliance, and Kerry Black. Sorry, that's my.
Well,
but otherwise,
otherwise
I'm crowdfunding again, and fucking hell, what a waste of time.
It is a waste
another
of time.
Another kid in the puny geek squad running up to Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to be cool. It's like, you know. He's only impressing his little circle of nerds. Everyone in the real world is like, this guy's an idiot, you know? Yeah.
But I still don't quite understand whether they're aware of it and doing it anyway, or I suspect that they really believe in, you know, like we believe in what we're saying, but I'm pretty sure that we're backed up with sort of logic and rationality. But I do believe that the other side, these people, they genuinely believe that, you know, their arguments are sound. I can't understand how.
They believe it.
I can't understand how. If your answer is, I haven't actually read it and I'm not an expert, but I know in my heart that I'm right.
And they believe it like they believe J.K. Rowling is a bigot. They've never presented any evidence. Because there isn't any. But basically, whenever anyone says, "Can I have some evidence?" They send a video by someone like fucking ContraPoints.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why are people impressed with ContraPoints? It's just an effeminate man having opinions, and he shoots.
I just don't get it though. I don't get it. I genuinely can't put myself in that mindset.
If you believe someone is a bigot, if you believe someone is a bigot enough to say it publicly, as people like fucking what's that kind of Seth Rogen has done. Dennis has a link already. I didn't even send him one. That's amazing. People like Seth Rogen, the lead singer of the New Pornographers, an absolutely brilliant band. He fucking slagged off J.K. Rowling. All of these people are prepared to say it publicly, and none of them have any evidence as to why she's what she's done wrong. It's extraordinary.
It is a mindset that I cannot understand. I cannot understand just sort of publicly saying things like this without having a position that I can sort of back up. I simply don't get it.
To be fair, Seth's probably stoned when he's on Twitter. You know? but like,
the weed in Western Canada is pretty strong. So yeah.
But that's no excuse for most. I mean, you see people jumping in, you know, who there's no excuse. There's no excuse. And that brings us back to, and this is a good place to bring Dennis in. That brings us back to the people who appeared for the LGBT Alliance, or for Mermaids this week. They didn't prepare. Why would you not prepare for something so important? Dennis, sorry,
but I think,
Helen,
Dennis, look, You were prepared. Your hair's all done. Your background is tidy. Bloody hell! You actually live like that.
What's he like usually?
Oh, my husband. It's not me. Don't worry.
Helen, what point were you going to make? And then we'll bring in Dennis.
I was going to make the point that I can't remember. I can't remember. We were talking about this.
We were talking about this lack of preparation, Dennis. What explains it in your view?
I mean, you could be a number of things, couldn't it? Could be utter incompetence, couldn't it? I mean, can I just check? Has anyone here actually read Cass' report? Poor Dr. Hilary Cass. She must be fucking livid. She spends hours
She's
and
no
hours
Stephen
and hours.
King. She's no Stephen King. She's gotta get it going with the subplot.
All in the paper. She closes down a whole service. No one reads her damn report.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And let's remember.
Can you imagine being the lawyer sitting there for that side, hearing him saying that? I skim read it. What? What? It's a bit.
John Nicholson thought he thought his bit went quite well. He said at the end, the lawyer seemed a bit flustered. Was he flustered when he said one of the LGBT Alliance impersonated a member of Parliament?
What the hell was that? I actually texted some people in the LGBT Alliance, and I was like, "Come on, admit it. Who was it? Was it the Fabricant?"
But he also said,
Malcolm got a cheeky Michael Fabricant wig or something.
But he also made the statement, didn't he? He said, "They've called me a rapist, enabler, and a paedophile." Like, he said this in open court, and you're like, no, they didn't. At best, you're going to retreat it if questioned to say, oh, well, one of their supporters has. But that's not what he said. He said, they've called me this. I'm like, this is the point, surely, that we throw him out. We're like, well, he's lying.
I know. And all the barrister could say was like, well, there's obviously no evidence for that in your package. So, moving on.
That's quite devastating, though, because Karen Moynihan said that a few times. She was like, yeah, well, there you go again. There's zero evidence of that, mate. Also, who is this guy that turns up to one of these gender critical tribunals and is saying, people have said bad things about me on the internet? About you? I want to see what we get.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, any day, John Nicholson, you absolute fraud. If you want to get on here and compare the abuse that you've got compared to the abuse that women get, come on anytime. You'd be very welcome. What was the other quote that was there? Dr. Belinda Bell, who is the chair of trustees, said, "I'm not sure people come out of the womb with the sex."
Oh yeah, that was today. I haven't even seen all of today's yet. There must be some.
No, that's yesterday's. I mean, you can't keep up. It's just mad. It's like everything they say is insane.
Yeah, they mentioned wrong puberties. John Nicholson mentioned being born in the wrong body. And then Belinda had to say, oh, we don't really go with the born in the wrong body narrative anymore. Lady, your own witness said it earlier in the day on the stand. Like, yeah, you do. You just did formally and officially in front of a judge. So,
It feels like they're so convinced, as you said earlier, Helen, that they're right about this, that someone will just kind of come in and back them up, or that facts will actually show that they're right. But the thing is, they're not right.
Facts don't need to anymore. I think this is the problem. They've been so used to arguing on Twitter where facts don't matter. Yeah. That's all that matters, is that you can grab a cabal of your supporters and to say, yeah, you nailed it, and avoid the question. And like that sort of, I'm not an expert. It just went round and round, just like happens when I ask my question. You get answers. I'm surprised somebody didn't shout out cubicles as an answer to things, because this is what people do. It's not a sort of relevant response, but people will shout it anyway and then think, nailed that. And this is what was happening. But
it's like a sort of ideological car crash in slow motion. And we're all driving past rubbernecking, sort of going, did he just say that? Some of the stuff, like that quote you just came out with, Graham, people come out of the womb and they don't have a set. Well, Where are they getting all these sexes from then? Where
do they leave it? I mean, it's great because when you get them into court, I think there's something very interesting happened to me during this fight. I went to Wales for the protest about Wales' disgusting new LGBT education program, which is the usual kind of queer theory nonsense. But I went there and I went up to a group of protesters because I was angry, and they were. I said something to them like, lesbians do not like dick or something like that. I tried to say that, but I fumbled it and I said, lesbians don't like women or something. And then I had to correct it. So what they did was they cut out the bit where I said lesbians don't like women, or lesbians don't go out with women or something like that. And they broadcast that to make it look like I was mad. And what I always love about that is they broadcast the thing where I agree with them. To make me look mad.
There's so many levels.
And so that's why these court cases are so important, because you get to see the madness of the ideology. It's now on the record.
It's so important because everybody's just going on vibes. People outside of our, the people who are totally into this fight and realize how incredibly important it is, and who are gripped with it and are fighting tooth and nail because we see the utter importance of this. But there's all the aside from us, the people on the outside who haven't gotten sucked into this vortex yet. They're just vibing on this whole thing. They're just seeing it's like some people are nice and some people are not nice, and some people are friendly to the LGBTs and some people are a little bit rude to the LGBTs. They're all just vibing, This is all just a bunch of vibes. And Graham Linehan, his tone is just a little intense about this. He must be bad, It's all just vibes. And this is like, this is breaking no more vibes. Here are the actual viewpoints of the actual sides. Here is what one side is literally fucking saying, vibes or no vibes. And here's what the other side is saying. Pick your fucking side. Stop vibing on who sounds polite and who sounds rude.
Like it is. Yeah. And we can see it, and we can see the bad arguments, but I'm a little bit worried that there is so much sort of gish gallop around it, like, oh, but they're actually really horrible and nasty, and somebody called me a paedophile. I'm a little bit worried that a judge who has not come across this before and is just hearing all of this isn't really grasping exactly what's going on, because if I didn't know, I'm not 100% convinced that this idea of just sort of like just answering questions in a way that almost don't even make any sense isn't a terrible sort of ploy, because I'm not sure that if I was just one judge that I could
the last 5 years
get the gist of it all.
The last 5 years has also really destabilized us all, in the sense of when Maya lost the first time and had to go to appeal, that was really shocking and upsetting, because if Maya lost, that would have been a disaster, So I can understand that, but I do think that there's a general level of water rising all boats in terms of the understanding of the issue at the moment, and I really have to say, I'm sure judges would be, Dennis, would they?
I would have thought that there's been some pretty extraordinary stuff happening in this tribunal. As court cases go, this is the first tier tribunal. It's used to nice little points of chancery law. It doesn't normally have this level of attention. And suddenly you've got the normal insane cast of people that you get in these sorts of cases. We don't quite have support dog this time round, but we're not too far off. Still waiting for someone. Your Honor, I call the genderbread man. That sort of level of nuts. So I would have thought it's a very rare case indeed, where a judge says, I've got a sitting MP here, right? The sitting MP, in the course of his evidence, you can read this in the tweets.
We've lost
he takes a swipe at a sitting Secretary of State. He says Kemi Badenoch is, basically a bad person. He says that in evidence. Like, what do you expect a Chancery Court to endorse your political opinion? Then he takes a swipe at the EHRC when one of the commissioners.
No, that is true.
Is the junior on the other side. I thought that was an interesting tactical moment.
Oh yeah, attack the judge. Insult the judge. It's a great way to win a court case. Let's just
There's a
insult the
load
judge.
of swipes at poor old Dr. Hillary Cass, and no one's even read her bloody report. with them saying, oh, well, she didn't. There was a wonderful exchange with the witness where he said, well, we complained about the report. We didn't like the report because it didn't consider all the evidence. So Karen Monaghan, KC, said, well, are you aware of some other evidence that Dr. Cass should have considered then? And he went, nah. Right, so let me get this straight. A sitting Secretary for State is a bad person. So's the EHRC, so's Dr. Cass.
Yeah.
This is, I do think that the judge is probably sat there going, what the hell is going on here?
Well,
Like,
I mean, the fact that he bundled it all together, we don't just dislike the LGBT alliance. We also hate, all of these other people, and putting them in a team together. That's the kind of forced teaming I actually endorse, because it's going badly for them when they're saying that you're all terrible. It's not just the LGBT alliance. It's this entire world of people that are evil.
Hey, listen, sorry, I just want to, I'd love to come back to this because it's very interesting from Kara Dansky. She just says a group of Senate Dems recently submitted comments on Title 9 containing the usual nonsense. It was signed by 19 senators. That's 31 Democratic senators who didn't sign it, including the majority leader. Yes, that's very good news. Anyway,
turning around very quickly. Good.
It really is.
Good. So,
sorry, Dennis.
Just to your point, Helen, because you can get a bit lost, I think, if you're following these tribunals intensely, because you just think, where the hell is this evidence going and what is the point? My overall assessment would be that I found the evidence from the other side. Well, how can I put this? I found it unusual in the court setting to have that's barrister understatement for anyone watching. I just to have a sitting MP taking a swipe at the member of a cabinet. It's like well, you expect the judge to say, I agree with that piece of evidence. Kimmy Badnock's a cow. It's like, what? This isn't normal. This is not what courts normally do, because that is a political question. And your side are saying LGBT alliance are too political. You're the one
that
swipes.
Well, this is what I was saying at the beginning. Like, if this does, for some reason, simply because it's all too confusing, if this does go badly for LGBT alliance, then the floodgates are open, for anyone to take mermaids to court for exactly the same reason. And quite, right?
That's a horrible precedent. This would set the most horrible precedent.
It's a horrible precedent.
There's a few questions.
Establish a new area of law. That's how revolutionary it would be, because I've done a big letter about the standing issue and so on, but the rules are if you want to bring a case like this, one of your, as Barbara Rich often points out on Twitter, one of your legal rights has to be affected. So if I set up a charity tomorrow and said the sole purpose of this charity is to, lobby to take possession of Helen's house, Helen, you could object and say that affects one of my legal rights. Okay? In this case, what's the legal right? Mermaids are saying, well, this affects our donations, but that seems unlikely as a proposition.
It does seem unlikely.
Who shall I donate to, mermaids or LGBT alliance? Close choice. They're so similar,
They even said that on the stand. They said, well, we're not going to have the same people, but, it'll
you see, but this is the thinking. This is the thinking. You see, they're going, people will think they're an LGBT organization, but we're an LGBT organization. Do you know what I mean? It's like they don't know. Like, one of the other weird things about this, about people in Mermaids and everyone involved in this, is none of them seem to think stuff through to the end. Like, if you don't read the Cass report, and none of your experts have read the Cass report, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. So why didn't you all read the Cass report? What are Mermaids doing again? They're a charity that looks after dysphoric kids. What did their experts do again? They didn't read the Cass report. You don't need another expensive fucking legal process to tell you that Mermaids shouldn't be a charity. Jesus, there's no experts in Mermaids. Helen Weberly, the disgraced Helen Weberly, excuse me, when she was asked, what expertise did you call upon to start your treatments? She said, Susie Green. Susie Green is a systems analyst. She's not a fucking doctor. She's nothing.
No,
just
you call her
someone-
up if you can't figure out your Excel spreadsheet. You don't call her up for
Exactly.
medical advice. You know, if
she
you got
did-
problems with Microsoft Excel, you go to Susie Green. You
Or
got
if you
problems
need-
with a
if you need
distress
flight
shot,
No,
you don't go
no,
to Susie
no.
Green.
I just want to say,
know?
if you've got problems with Microsoft Excel, you can come to me. Actually.
Yes.
Just
yes.
saying.
And if you got problems with Microsoft Access, you
That would
come
be
to me.
one hell of a support desk. You ring up, you either get Helen Staniland or Susie Green. No, which one I prefer. Do you know? I do think
Helen
sometimes-
talking about penis and Susie talking about micro penises.
Well, yeah, that's right, because we're obsessed, aren't we? We're obsessed with genitals,
Totally.
according to Mr. Nicholson.
Well,
I'll be like a Gilbert and
I'll tell
Sullivan
people-
opera. I am the
I'll-
very model of a modern major general. Penises and genitals and
Let me tell
cubicles and
people.
testicles. I don't
Let
know.
me brief. I'm so sorry. I know I keep derailing this to talk about things that, but one of the things about this whole fight is that, like, for 5 years we've just been scandal after scandal after scandal, and they're all just lying out there. But let me tell you what that micropenis reference is. There's a documentary with Susie Green, and she's talking about how, because her child was on hormones for so long, his penis wasn't large enough to create a neo-vagina. So it was it was too small. So what they have to do when that happens is they have to take a piece from the colon and attach it to that so that it forms a vagina, right? Susie Green is on this documentary laughing about her son's micropenis. You know, it is the most, and then it cuts to this poor kid in hospital, you know, and to fight a rear guard action, you know, in case everybody suddenly puts two and two together and realizes what that woman is responsible for. She's trying to spread it as a social thing throughout society. It's the most, you know, when people say it's the greatest medical scandal in years, that is why. That is why. You know. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm ranting.
Oh, and thanks
Dennis,
to Kara Dansky for popping in. She had to leave, but it was lovely to have her in the audience just to say
oh
hi.
yes, and thank you for that great news. It's wonderful. Dennis, what do you know? What the order of play is over the next few days? What else have we got to look forward to?
Yeah, we got the formidable Kate Harris continuing in evidence. So she's going to be up tomorrow morning, and then after that, it's Eileen Gallagher, I believe, from LGBT Alliance. Very, very clever, very switched on sort of person. Then that's the end of the live witnesses, and we will then, I understand, move to closing submissions. Now, it's been a little bit of classic barrister back and forth nonsense about, well, have we used a bit more time than we ought to? So will we have slightly shorter submissions? That might happen. But we're coming, thank goodness, towards the end of this case, because I'm not sure how much more of it I can take, to be honest.
No.
And I love a bit of turfing. I love a bit of turfing. But
may I make a couple of observations about the case as well, Dennis?
Yeah. Sure.
Where was Susie Green? Why didn't she give evidence? Where was Helen Weberly, their doctor? Why didn't she give evidence? Where was Paris Lees, who's constantly said that mermaids are a wonderful thing? Where was Nancy Kelly, who has constantly praised mermaids? Why weren't didn't any of these experts turn up to this very, very important case?
Well, it's up. You know, the claimant brings their case. They are the claimant here, or the appellant, I suppose. They can choose which witnesses they do and don't wish to call. One might have thought that the CEO of Mermaids would be an obvious candidate, but instead they've gone for the chair of the board of trustees. So it's just a matter for them how they shape their case. But their choice of witnesses has been interesting because
that's some more of that understatement, would you say?
I wonder if they'd make the same choices again.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, tell us about how do you think Bev Jackson's testimony went, and how do you think the examination, is that the right word?
Cross-examination.
The cross-examination went. What do you think of the formulation of the questions, how that went, and how, I mean, my non-legal opinion was that Bev Jackson came across utterly open, honest, and incredibly believable. And I think it was Graham who said something along the lines that, like, when you have nothing to hide, you come off really well, or something like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just thought it was classic Bev. You know, Bev is a reasonable, nice, thoughtful person who is more than happy to talk to the other side and try to find some common
Yeah.
ground. I think she has the patience of a saint myself. I don't know how she does it. I know how long I would have lasted in that. So I was very impressed with her evidence. I didn't feel at any point when I looked at her evidence that there was a gotcha moment. I didn't sense that there was a difficulty or a tough point. Now, I would just say that the Silk on the other side has obviously split his cross-examination, and with Bev, it seems that much of the focus was sort of philosophical, ideological. Whether that's the right tactical call at the end of the day, we shall see. Now, with Kate, he's going for the more standing points, and this proposition that mermaids have latterly developed in their skeleton argument, because their position as it's developed in the case has been the LGBT Alliance is too political. It should be a political lobby group. It shouldn't be a charity. Now, that's a move from where they started in this, because they started with hate group. But now it's much more, no, you're lobbying. Now, that's interesting. And I consider it myself to be a circular argument, because gay rights weren't political until you lot came along and said lesbians have willies.
Yes. But also, if
they were contentious. They had lost their contentious nature, and then you introduced it again. Sorry,
yes,
Helen.
but if you're gonna go after the LGBT Alliance for political lobbying, then you can look at mermaids in spades for it. Obviously, they're not. It is. There's one side trying the other side. If somebody wanted to go after mermaids, they would have to do it all over again and do it. However, it wouldn't be a brilliant precedent for them to set for themselves, because
they're the ones who put an MP on the stand in defense of their own case. They can't say they're not political when they brought an actual literal standing politician onto the stand to defend their organization. You don't see that LGBT Alliance saying we're literally aligned with actual elected MPs and they are literally defending us. Are you? Do you? Like, come on.
You're too
and they
political.
can't say we can go to politicians and tell them that lesbians do have penises. That's not political. But if you go to politicians and tell them that lesbians don't have penises, oh, that's political. Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Really,
You're too political. And here's our first witness, Che Guevara.
I now call Otto von Bismarck, former Chancellor of the Unified Germany. Your Honor.
Queen Victoria's niece or nephew.
There's no intellectual symmetry to this submission anyway, though, because if LGBT Alliance saying on, say, gender recognition reform in Scotland, if their document saying keep it as it is political, then why isn't Mermaids saying we want to change it? Where is the equality of arms in that debate? Where's the logical consistency? Why is it too political if it's said by someone gender critical?
This is a fight between two sides where there is no logical consistency, though, isn't it? There is no moral consistency or logical consistency. I mean, it's a ridiculous fight. It's ridiculous that we've been fighting it for so long. Yeah. But that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is that there's no logical consistency, because if there was, it would be a sort of meeting of equals, and people would put their arguments, and then people would say, okay, yeah, that argument's better. You've convinced me. But it isn't like that at all. It's narcissistic rage and logical consistency.
Yeah. And it's cult, and it's fighting a cult.
One of my favorite.
It's absolutely a cult. It's like the Scientologists call it N theta.
For everyone else, but
we're all.
You guys are kind of skipping for me. Is it my connection?
I think it might be your connection.
Maybe it's my connection.
Yeah,
everything seems fine.
Okay, I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to turn it off and on again. See you in a second.
Okay.
Well, I was just saying, like, it's very cult-like. That, like, the cast report is like Scientologists call it N theta. Anything that, if you're told that something is going to say something bad about your group, you just avoid it. You have an obligation to, and that's what the cast report is to them. They know it's going to tell them that they've done something wrong. They know it's going to tell them that there's a flaw in their ideology, so they just skim it or don't read it at all. And that works great when they're in their little group, in their little club, but a courtroom is not part of the church of genderology. You have to read that N theta. You have to see what the other side is saying. And they just haven't done that. Actually, I don't know what astonishes me more, when they say that they haven't read the criticisms of their viewpoint, or when they say that they have and they haven't been persuaded by them. Both ways are terrible, you know?
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Oh, wow!
He's back.
There's two of me. Sorry, no one wants
weird.
that. Even I don't want that.
Well, Dennis is still on the bottom and I'm
Like,
still on the
just
top.
Before
So
we move too far. All right. Before we move too far away from what we were just talking about, I just wanted to make two very funny things. First thing that made me laugh out loud, that wasn't to do with the stupidity of the other side, was well, actually it was in the end, but there was a really funny moment where Bev, the final line of questioning, like basically when our side goes no further questions, it's always after a humdinger of a
you get a
point,
nice little stick.
But when they say it, it's the opposite. Yeah,
they're like saying uncle. They're crying uncle.
And Bev was asked. Bev was asked something like, and you know, you think that evidence should be fact-based, and Bev just said, well,
yes.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so funny. I could just
No,
imagine
Glenn, it was worse than that, because it was like, shock as elderly lesbian says schools should teach facts. What an unreasonable cow Bev Jackson is. How dare she suggest schools teach facts?
That was the first. That really, really made me laugh. I could see poor Bev's face as she took this on. And I took this in. And you do have to kind of wonder if the judges are just constantly thinking, they're going to be looking through the transcript to make sure they got it all right, you know? Because
they're like, I must be missing something, because one of these people,
That's what I'm worried about, is that there might be this, like, I'm missing a fundamental aspect of this argument, because I can't take it at face value because it's nonsensical. Therefore, there must be something deeper about it. There must be some point here that is happening that I can't quite see because I haven't been part of the fight. And I'm a little bit worried about that, because otherwise, I mean, because if you do take it at face value, you're like, this is ridiculous.
That's the other annoying thing about all these cases. You have to go through this fucking period of stress where you think, will the world still be sane after this result is read out? Or will it be another step into insanity and cruelty and bullying? Bev and Kate should be enjoying their retirement. They came back into the public eye because they were horrified at what was happening to young lesbians, you know? And now these criminals are fighting this rearguard action and putting them through hell to rationalize what they've done. They're, I have no sympathy for them, and I think the sooner, I really think, in the end, you might even. Well, no, I'm being too hopeful, but I would love to see a criminal investigation into mermaids. I really would, in terms of selling drugs to minors and all that sort of stuff. I really would love to.
Honestly, I'd be happy with it. The tide turning. I do think the tide is turning, but the tide turning, and it's sort of people like the general public saying, actually, this puberty blockers thing, this doesn't sound right. I mean, and I think people are beginning to say it. The Cass report was brilliant for that. But it takes a while to get the momentum going for people to think, oh, actually, everyone thinks this, so it's okay to say it out loud.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's interesting because litigation is always a risk, of course. What would the world look like if LGB Alliance lost? I think mermaids would shoot themselves somewhat in the foot. As we've observed already, they would open the doorway to their own status being challenged, and those of all the other heads of the Hydra charities. But in addition to that, an appeal, I suspect by way of judicial review or whatever the mechanism is, would be inevitable. I would have thought that if we ended up with a bad, or what we would consider to be a bad for status style first instance judgment, I would expect confidently the Court of Appeal Civil Division to reject that. But I think more importantly, philosophically, what would the world look like the day after, say, charity status is taken away? Well, I think a lot of gay people would say, wait a minute,
really mobilize gay people to speak up.
That we can only have charities if we agree with heterosexual Susie Green and heterosexual Joy Longmont. So our abilities, or apparent heterosexual, our abilities to organise politically autonomously seem contingent on us getting the imprimatur of to people who have nothing to do with gay rights.
That's
and
right.
who are
We can
speaking
only
over
campaign
us and
on the
speaking for
permission
us.
of straight people. We have to get straight people's permission for what we can campaign about.
I
That
think-
is shocking, you know?
It is shocking, and it's an excellent way of putting it. And honestly, it's important to put it this way, because not everyone would have thought about it. Not everyone knows, but we do know that propaganda works. Messaging works. So this is an excellent point, and it's true.
It's true. Now, lesbians can't even participate in pride parades unless they get permission from straight people, or they get physically dragged out of them, and now we're saying we can't even have a helpline for gay people unless straight people dictate to us that we have done it right according to their rules.
The Lib Dem who got
infuriating,
the Lib Dem woman who got the gay guy thrown out of the parade for wearing an LGB Alliance shirt. She was straight, wasn't
Alex.
she? Yeah.
I mean, one can look at this period in history.
We are not allowed to say, straight people. Sorry,
Artie. I was just going to say, one can look at this period in history, and I think this is a good way of analysing it as stage 2 of the gender wars. Now, stage 1 of the gender wars was convincing the public at large and making the argument that there was a tension in the conflict of rights between trans rights and women's rights, and getting people to understand that and articulating that. And women were the first on the pitch to say there's a problem here. That's now been achieved. People understand that well, and they can see it in things like sports and so on. What this case is stage 2, because this case is now the paradigm example of the conflict between trans rights and gay rights. Because here is a trans going head to head with gay rights. And we go back to the wonderful J.K. Rowling quote. Without sex, the first clause in that sentence, there's no same-sex attraction, the second clause. And therefore, we have stage 1, stage 2. And I think that this is a big moment in stage 2, because if anyone tries to tell you, oh, LGB with the T, everyone gets along famously and happily, really? Go and look at that tribunal.
Yeah.
It's a fair point. Yeah.
And again, let's not let people forget this. John Nicholson was in the closet when all these people were fighting for gay rights. So how dare he come at them again? So sorry, don't come at them again. He didn't come at them first time. He just hid in the closet. What was I? There was one other thing there was something I just wanted to quickly. Oh yeah. All right. First of all, hilarious interview with Julian Mom where he talked about how he used to suffer as he's known hardship. Yeah, well, Chris Morris.
He owns a windmill.
He owns a windmill, and Chris Morris told me they went to school together. So no, I don't think so, Julian. Nice try. I can't believe they're trying to get away with that. The other thing I've heard about, I've been reading something recently that is really disturbing, and I think we should just let's give over to it a little bit, just to talk about the damage that gender ideology is doing to gay men and also to young women. I'm hearing more and more reports coming in that straight men are going on apps like Grindr, right? And they're calling themselves gay, and they're hooking up with young trans men who think that they're the opposite sex. Do you, Dennis? Does that sound likely to you?
I've seen extensive reference to that in gay male groups, and
I think it's the most disturbing thing I've heard yet, because these poor kids, these girls, are being told by these men that they are gay men, and then they're being used for sex in this way. It's the most disgraceful thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and meanwhile, us gay blokes, much like with lesbians, we don't have our apps anymore. Because our spaces, and it's not like we have a shed load of spaces to ourselves. There's very few places where you can go as a gay man or a lesbian and not be in the minority. These sacred little spaces that we have now getting flooded by straights. And I share your compassion, Graham. I don't want these people badly treated, but I also don't want them on our bloody apps.
No, I know. I
think that's a really good point.
Yeah. I think my point, I guess, is that they are victims, like sure. as are gay men. This these people, someone just pointed out saunas. They go to they've been in saunas. They go to saunas and they wonder why the men aren't interested in them.
Yeah,
No, the saunas
really?
that are letting females in are saunas that are losing most of their customers.
Oh,
and they're
really?
going to start
That's interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're a sexual space, a space where people are going to have orgies, let's just be real and use frank language. If you're a homosexual, you don't want a female in that space. It's going to really upset you. It's like, you don't want, if you're really not attracted and you're really turned off by sex with females, as most homosexuals are, homosexual men, you don't want a female in your space. It's like having, you don't want your friend watching you have sex with your partner. You don't want this is someone who's not in your sexual group. So it's going to shut the whole space down. Yeah. I experienced this firsthand. I'm not really a participant in that kind of space. Usually, I'm not that kind of gay. But I went to Berlin, and I did go to a sexual space. I went to like a leather bar. I love leather bars. And I went to the back room where the lights are all off, and you can kind of do what you want. And I stood in this space in the wall where there was no men around. And I realized it's because the person next to me was a female who had snuck into the space. And she tried to have sex with me. And I was terrified, and I ran out of there. And I felt guilty for like 2 years. I was blaming myself for being a coward, for not letting this person touch me. And it took me until quite recently to process, like, no, I had every right. I am not sexually attracted to females. This was upsetting. It was violating my boundary, and that's why all the other men were staying in the other side of the room.
Could I also make the point that the law of the United Kingdom, as set out in the Crown against McNally, which is not an old case, says that a deception as to your biological sex vitiates consent.
Yes.
That is to say that it cancels it out. So if persons are going into dark rooms and they are misleading other persons as to their biological sex, they are committing offences contrary to the Sexual Offences Act of 2003, which has some pretty stiff penalties, as you might imagine. Justina McNally, who was convicted of assault by penetration in the appeal I've just referenced, received a sentence of 4 years from His Honour Judge Patrick in Wood Green Crown Court in North London, and that was not overturned. The judges in the Court of Appeal said 4 years is exactly what we would expect for this sort of thing. And that was for a very sympathetic case on a guilty plea. And the significance of a guilty plea is that it normally entitles you to a 1/3 reduction in your sentence. So that 4 years has got a third taken off it. So it's 6 years if the defendant had gone to trial. And we've got organizations, famously, of course, one outfit that I think was endorsed by the NHS, that is advising relatively young people in this, advising young people, just go in, don't declare your gender. It's like you are putting these people at risk of criminal prosecution.
It's similar to Novara Media, when Novara Media gave advice on how to speak to your doctor, so you'd immediately get blockers and stuff like this. Like lift him up. He has to be lifted up. We have to see him. We have to see the dog. I want to see the baby. There he is.
There she is. There she is.
Sorry,
we suspended her.
I know. There'll be a picture of her on Canadian news looking down at the screen. Sorry, what were we talking about just there? And isn't it? Am I right in thinking that Stonewall have been trying to change the law as it relates to sex by deception?
Yes, it appeared in some of their campaign material, I think, during the tenure of Ruth Hunt. I've certainly seen the document you're referring to there, where they say we want to change the law on sex by deception. Well, good luck. In any event, you can't do that because that bit of law was made in the Court of Appeal, not in the statute, so it wouldn't be possible. But in any event, my goodness, it hasn't appeared since, though. They've gone a bit quieter on that one. I think every now and then they do this, don't they? They do a huge misstep. Like, do you remember there was the bit where they said we're going to campaign to end the single-sex exemptions in the Equality Act, and that went down pretty badly. And lots of feminist groups said, well, the feminist groups just read out what they were saying. So, this is what they're doing.
They always do everything they can until the moment they get caught. When they get caught, that's when they reverse,
Yeah, we just had an example of that recently, didn't we? With the trans your 2-year-old tweet. Oh no, we didn't mean that.
Yeah.
We didn't mean that.
Oh, and by the way, another thing that I really wanted to get this. I really wanted to talk about this, but we've kind of running out of time. Where is it? Hold on a second. Sorry, what were you just talking about there again, Dennis? Because it'll remind me of what I wanted to find.
The tweet about 2-year-olds.
Yes. Did anyone see the queering the table thing at the Stratford Youth Zone? Does anyone know about this?
No.
Well, okay, queer the table. So I don't know what that refers to. You know, like dinner settings to do that can be. Maybe you put the fork on the right.
Queering your place setting. I love it.
Yeah, but here's what it says.
Sorry.
This is Stratford Youth Zone, Thursday, 17th of Feb, free 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And the thing says LGBTQ, 9 to 25 years old.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Youth group,
Yes, I did see that.
No, not acceptable.
No.
You know, not acceptable
No,
at
that
all.
was terrible.
Has anyone else heard of this? I would love to find out what exactly this is about.
I did. I saw a tweet about it. I did. Yes.
Yeah. Is it real? Is it like? Could it be a prank? Could be.
No, honestly, come on. Everything you think that sounds so terrible is all true. It's virtually always true.
Well, because anytime anyone says that's a safeguarding issue, someone will turn around and say, "Oh, you're accusing trans people of being bad." They can just push the boundaries as far as they want, and everybody has to say there's no possibility of any nefarious intent here, because then you're calling trans people evil.
No, you're
literally inviting
predators.
Men in their mid-20s to be in private support groups with 9-year-old girls. That's an obvious red flag, but they're saying, no, it's okay, it's trans. Don't you dare say there's anything wrong with this. You know?
I mean, and really, in the end, Dennis, we better let you go in a sec. You've been on for a good while now, but actually, will we let you go now, Dennis? That's probably all we'll talk about.
Sure, it's lovely to see you guys again.
Dennis.
Lovely
to see you, Dennis.
Might see you soon if another one of these stupid cases comes up. Bye. Oh yes, and someone just pointed out the LGBT Alliance fundraiser on Crowd Justice is still open, so you can pay for the incredible show that they've been putting on. It's been, when you think about it, the funding of the LGBT Alliance thing, it's like everyone got together to crowdfund a sitcom, because it's do you know what I mean? Just a naturally occurring sitcom. I can't remember.
I wanted to say something.
Yes.
I started watching the Jordan Peterson and Helen Joyce chat.
Yes.
And it is really very, very good. Now, Jordan Peterson is often like a bit insane, and I don't agree with everything he says. But actually, there are a lot of great insights that are coming out. You know, they talk very, very well together, and it is well worth watching.
Oh yeah, well,
very good.
You know how I decided, because I'd seen his name smeared so completely, I decided to actually read his book to see if it reflected what it was being told about him, that he was a bigot, that he was this, that he was that. It's a beautiful book. His book, 12 Rules, is a beautifully written book. And I know lobsters, people don't like the lobsters bit, but
no, it's like some of the things he says. I think no, I don't necessarily.
But have you read that chapter?
He's always interesting.
It's worth reading.
Yeah. But he's always interesting. I think.
Yes.
You know, he's never.
And I think he puts it.
And there's some brilliant insights.
And we must always remember that the stink that is around Jordan Peterson, the reason why he gets ambushed on Channel 4, why there's so much clamor around his name, is because of a single video. It all goes back to the video where trans rights activists said, you have to use preferred pronouns, and he said, no, I don't. That's where it all comes from.
No, Jordan Peterson was on this absolutely years ago. I mean, I've heard of him like years and years and years ago when he had refused, when he was still a lecturer, and he had refused to use pronouns at his university. And I think there was a massive fuss about it.
Oh, it all comes from that.
Yeah.
It all comes from that.
Yeah.
Like basically, there's so many stories of cancellations when you look at them, you think, they got cancelled for X, but it's not really why they got cancelled. Often the real reason is they annoyed the trans lobby. Because when you annoy the trans lobby, however you do it, they will find the way that they can, destroy you. You know what I mean?
But so anyway, so that is a superb interview. Oh, it's a chat. It's a superb chat.
Yeah, can I just say one last? I'll tell one last funny story about Jordan Peterson. It's not really a story because I didn't experience it. I was just reading it in the newspaper. But like the Guardian is always trying to throw a bit of stink on Jordan Peterson, and I was reading the Guardian before I realized what the Guardian was, you know. And there was a brilliant bit where he brought them to his home, and he had all these communist posters on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
And so they said to him, "Oh, you got a lot of communist posters on, you know?" And he said, "Yes, you know, because he's interested in that period or whatever, and he's interested in authoritarianism, you know." And well, what I loved about it is that they said it. They wrote it in such a way that they made it seem like it was a bit suspicious he didn't have any Nazi posters up, because like. See, if you have communist posters up, that means you don't like communism and you're anti-communism. But why didn't he have any Nazi posters up? And I was reading it and I was thinking, can you imagine if he had Nazi posters up? What are you talking about?
Oh, I desperately wanted him to.
They're always just trying to find something they can get someone with.
Can you believe it? He's guilty of not having Nazi posters on his wall. Like,
yeah.
That's what
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
You know? One-sided, you know. Anyway, listen, it's like, you know, because it's socially acceptable to put up communist posters. It's not socially acceptable to put up Nazi posters. Listen, we better call it a day because we've gone longer than we usually do. And
yes, that's true.
I think we've covered loads.
It's been a wild one, and
good fun. Good fun.
What's the lovely doggy's name again? Sophie.
Sophie.
Oh,
Sophie Bach.
Sophie Bach.
There she is.
I love her.
All right, guys. Well, look, if something, I'm sure these days we have an excuse to come on every week, so I'm sure I'll see you next week at some point.
Yeah, so much going on. All right, guys. Lovely to see you.
Bye, everyone.